fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Do you want to know exactly what you'll look like in 3 years from today? Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back here with Salt Strong Unchurched. We're talking about strategic planning for your life. And yes, by the end of this episode, which will probably be a pretty short one, you will know exactly, you have literally a blueprint to find out exactly what you'll look like, where you'll be, how much money you'll have, who you'll be surrounded by in 3 years from today. But first, let me ask you a question. If you gave the best archer, someone who shoots bows and arrows, the best archer in the entire world, the best bow, the best arrows, the sharpest arrows, the straightest arrows, like literally gave this person every advantage possible, but you never told him or her what the target is, how well do you think they'd do at hitting it? Right? Otherwise, they'd just be in the woods just shooting at random things. They'd never find it. Let's just say you gave the best soccer player in the world, Pele or Ronaldo or whoever the hit might be. Sorry for you soccer fans, I'm clueless on that. But if you get the very best soccer player, the very best, the leader of all time in goals, if you gave them a soccer ball but no goal and never told them the rules of the game, how many goals do you think they would score if there was nothing there but just green grass? Right? I mean, we need to know what the destination is. We need to know what the goal is. Yet most of us go through life without any goals. Most of us don't have a written down, clear plan of where we're going to be. And I'll give you an example. I had a friend recently. She was telling me like her goal, because I asked her this, like, hey, what's like your 3-year goal? She's like, oh, I just want to travel. I was like, well, that's awesome. Like, tell me more. It's like, I don't know. I just really want to travel. I was like, all right, well, let's fast forward to 3 years from now. You live, let's just say, in Atlanta, Georgia, and you made it to South Carolina. To me, that's traveling, right? Heck, you made it to the grocery store. That's traveling. And she laughed. She's like, well, no, I mean like more than that. I was like, well, what's the difference, right? It's just like saying, hey, I want to lose weight in 3 years from now. If you don't say 30 pounds, if you're 30 pounds overweight, and you lost 2, if you didn't write down a specific, clear goal, you kind of won, but then again, you didn't, because you're way off of the goal that you had in your mind. So I dug a little deeper. I was like, all right, well, tell me where you want to travel. And she's like, I really want to go to Italy. It's always been a dream. It's like, now we're cooking with oil here, right? I mean, it's a whole lot different than saying in 3 years from now, I want to have at least traveled to Italy once, or Italy in France and Australia. And that's a much, much bigger difference than saying, oh, my goal is just to travel more. Right? Because I could just simply say, hey, you went all over you're downtown Atlanta. You went up to Blue Ridge, Georgia for a weekend. That's a lot of traveling. For some people, it might be, but that's a horrible way to set goals. And it's why most people end up frustrated and not where they want to be. I mean, isn't it interesting that all successful companies, every Fortune 500 company, these are the ones that continue to outperform everyone that's out there. And every one of them started small, by the way. No company got to the Fortune 500 the day they were born. Every single one of these companies started small. They started with usually one person, if not two, a couple founders, and usually one customer. You always have to have your first customer, right? Every one of these companies started that way, if you think about it. And yet, what do they all have in common? Every one of them has a written down 3-year plan. They know exactly where they are going to be and what they're going to look like. They know exactly how many employees they have. They know exactly how much revenue they have. They know exactly how much profit they're going to have. They know how many stores they're going to have in 3 years from now. They dwell over this. They write this stuff down for the whole company to see, and they all shoot towards it. Now, it doesn't mean that it happens every time. Things happen. We have recessions. We have pandemics. Things happen that change it. And maybe that's part of your fear. It was for me for a while. I was like, oh man, how am I going to be able to write down what I want my life to look like in 3 years from now? If, all these other things could happen, I might have a kid during that time. I might change jobs. I don't know, but you got to start somewhere, because otherwise you're just like that archer. You could have the straightest bows and the sharpest arrows, and all of a sudden you find yourself saying, well, wait a minute, what's the target again? I just feel like I'm shooting here in the dark. And I continue to hear this over and over again. But I also, and this is a big reason I'm doing this, I've had multiple people who listened to a prior episode talking about mission and talking about purpose. And they read my book, Fishing for Happiness, where I talk about the power of writing down very clear and very specific goals. And even that 16-point questionnaire, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes if you haven't seen it. It literally changed my life. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. And this 16-point questionnaire basically gets you to write down where you want to be in 3 years or 5 years or whatever. I think 3 years is a whole lot better. 1 year is a little bit too short for, massive transformation or maybe to get your trip to Italy or whatever it might be. But 3 years, anything can happen in 3 years. And it's not so long that, it's intimidating to look out that far. But I kept hearing from people saying, gosh, I finally just did it and it changed my life. I feel like I've got clarity. I feel like when I wake up in the morning, I have more clarity. And the same thing happened with us at Salt Strong. The first couple of years, we were just like bouncing all over the place. Are we an apparel company? Are we a fishing education company? What are we? And looking back, we never had clear goals. We never wrote anything down. It was in our head that, oh yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to make up such an impact. And we have now, but it was crazy. If you look at our momentum and how much we've done in a short amount of time, it can be backtracked to the day we actually sat down and like literally took a day off work, if you will. But we were obviously working on the strategy, just like you need to work on the strategy of your life. And as soon as we wrote that down, we had clarity. We had purpose. We had a mission. We knew what we needed to do to get to this point that in our eyes would have been pretty ideal. And now our whole company, all of our employees know. I mean, we know exactly from 3 years from today, we know exactly how many customers we're going to have. Will it change? Perhaps. Will it look a little bit different? Perhaps. But we know what we're striving towards at least. And obviously when you have a plan like that, a written down plan, you can backtrack it. All right, if I need to lose 30 pounds in 3 years, I need to lose, let's just say 10 pounds a year or whatever it might be. It's so much easier to backtrack what you need to do when you know where you're going. And so I'm going to go talk about the 16-year plan real quick, or the 16-point questionnaire that gets you to your plan. This was something that a guy named Jason Wink had shared with me. He was in the financial services world and was just crazy successful. And just everything he did seemed like he did it so effortlessly. It was so easy for him. And he's like, man, it's really not easy for him. He's like, I get distracted all the time. And he's like, it was this 16-point questionnaire that like changed my life. He's like, it just got me aligned with what my goals were. And, his wife did it too. And we wrote down exactly really where we wanted to be, what we wanted our dream house to look like, how many kids we wanted to have, what did our day look like? And he went really, really deep in terms of what he wanted everything to look like. And he's like, we just started working towards it. And all of a sudden I woke up one day and I had it. And so this is like kind of the eerie part I talked about in my book, Fishing for Happiness. My wife and I did the same thing. And, at the time, we were renting a house and things were just chaotic with, young kids and working and trying to save money and stuff. And we wrote down all of these things, like what do we want our day to look like? What do we want our house to look like? And we talked about a big property on a lake. That's what we just bought. I mean, it's crazy now when I look back at what I wrote down just a few years ago. We're literally living that life. It's crazy. I talk about getting closer with God and doing something like this, like using our platform to share God's word. What's Unchurched? I mean, it's like, it gives me goosebumps when I go read what I wrote down back then. And it's no wonder, right, that I wrote this stuff down and I looked at it, probably not enough. I think that's the one thing that I screwed up on, is not looking at it every single day, right? If you have a goal, just like big companies do, and smart people, if you have a purpose and a very clear, specific goal, losing weight or traveling to Europe or whatever it is, look at it every day, dwell on it, pray on it, let God do amazing things in your life. It's so wild what I've seen God do in my life when I write down and basically ask him, here's where I want to be, and sometimes it's wrong, right? And I really think that's the biggest issue, because it was the biggest issue with me is, what if it changes and then I look like an idiot, or I'm not consistent, I'm not congruent. It will change. It probably will change, but it doesn't have to change a lot. It might be just a subtle little shift. Sometimes it doesn't change. Sometimes you knock it out of the park your first time, but writing it down is the first step in getting you to the right place. Stephen Covey, what are just an amazing person and great books. I might butcher this quote a little bit, but it's something like this. He says, if the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, every step takes you in the wrong direction. Think about that. If the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, every step up takes you in the wrong direction. And that's how so many of us live our lives, right? We're going in the wrong direction. We're taking steps, but they're in the wrong way from what we truly want. So once again, it's no shocker that the most successful companies, all these Fortune 500 companies, all spend a lot of time writing down their goals and their strategic plan. So if you want to know what you're going to look like in 3 years from now, write it down. If you want to know exactly what your life is going to look like, start writing it down and taking one step at a time to get there. It is so crazy what happens when you are specific. It is so crazy what happens when you actually write it down. And you have to be clear, right? Like my friend who wanted to travel, you got to be very, very, very clear what you want. And the more clear you are, I'm just telling you, the better the chance that you are going to get it. And the more often that you look at it, and even the more people you tell. As soon as we started telling some of our employees and some of our close contacts, hey, here's where we want to be. And I'll tell you, I mean, our going to 5-year plan is to have 1 million customers. We want to impact. It's right there on our website. So I'm not telling you something you don't know. On the business side of things, because I have a strategic plan personally in terms of what I want to look like and what I want our life to look like, and our kids and our beliefs and how much time we're spending together and how much time we're traveling. I have all that personally, but on the business side, obviously, we post it right there on our site for everybody to see. And we want to have 1 million people that we have impacted. That doesn't mean 1 million insiders. That doesn't mean, that we've gone out fishing with 1 million people. That's 1 million people that have transacted business with us. That means we were able to impact them, to create wow in their lives, and to hopefully improve their lives and help create memories out in the water. That's really what we are. I mean, Salt Strong, yes, it's a fishing company, but we're in the memory creating business. What gets us absolute highs and goosebumps is when we get that email or that message on Instagram or Facebook or in our insider community from someone saying, gosh, I grew up fishing with my dad, he passed away, or I grew up fishing with my grandparents and they're no longer here. And I wanted to go out there and recreate that same memory with my kids or my nieces and nephews, if you don't have kids, or just my neighbor. I just want to go out there and show people how amazing it is just to be outside in God's creation and go fishing. And you guys help me get there. And that's what it does it for us. And that's why we get so energized. And so we know if we can have 1 million people, they're not all going to have the same experience. Every experience is going to be different. But we know if we can touch 1 million lives, that is going to have a massive, massive ripple effect. And in turn, we'll be able to hopefully impact millions and millions and millions of families in that time frame. And then, after that, we'll have different goals, right? I mean, it's definitely something that will evolve and change over time, but you got to start somewhere. And you don't want to say some 20-year goal, because it's impossible. And then guess what? You sit on your laurels and don't do anything because you feel like you have so much time. So the more you can shorten it, the better. I personally think you start with 3 because it's not too intimidating and it's also not too far out. And then break it down into 2 and 1 and even 6-month goals. All right. You know what? If I'm going to get here, if I'm going to travel to Europe and it's going to cost me, let's just say $10,000 for this amazing trip, I probably need to start saving a little bit per month. You know what? Gosh, if I just saved $45 and put it into this account, and I'm throwing out numbers here, all of a sudden I will have 10 grand over 3 years if I do that every single month without fail. It's amazing. That's not that intimidating, right? You know what? I can save $45 a month or $50. It's not going to be that big of a number when you talk about compounding an interest to get to 10,000. If you do it every single month for 3 years, it's really not that tough. So this is my challenge to you. I'm not just encouraging you here. This is an absolute flat out challenge. And I'd love to hear from you if you do it. Write down, spend time. Just so you know, this is not something you do in 10, 20 minutes. Like for our strategic plan with Salt Strong, we literally took an entire day. Like we actually went offsite, out of the office, no phones, just pad of paper, and started just writing down what's really important to us. Like what would success look like in our eyes if we could accomplish this in 3 years from now, which is, the impacting the 1 million people and the start of our fishing theme park, at least buying the property. That would be a massive success. And then all of a sudden we just kept getting more and more clarity on it. And then we just kept writing, and we kind of, let's erase that and kind of change this wording. And then we got it. And as soon as we got it, I'm telling you, like a light bulb went off, and all of a sudden there was more energy, there's more excitement. We knew where we were going, right? On a road trip, right? If hey, I want to go travel where? Like, you need to know where you're going. You need to know where the end point is. And as I said, it can change. You can make stops along the way. You can spend the night at a Holiday Inn if you want to. You could take a detour to go see something. That happens in life. It's inevitable. But as long as you know where that end point is and you know the time you need to get there, I'm telling you, that's when the magic happens. So my challenge to you is to write it down. Spend some time with a spouse if you have one, or boyfriend, girlfriend, someone who's important to you and you trust their judgment and might be along the journey with you. And it can be as simple as that. Hey, in 3 years from now, I want to travel to France. In 3 years from now, I do want to lose 30 pounds, or I want to. You don't just want to say, I want to be in the best shape of my life, right? Because that's tough kind of tough to justify. I guess you could say, oh, I'm in better shape, but put a specific, weight and how many times you're working out a day, stuff like that makes it a whole lot more clear than just saying, oh yeah, I want to be in great shape, or I want to be eating healthy. That's not as good as being very, very precise on what you want to look like, what you want a life to look like, and go through this 16-point questionnaire. Like I said, I'll put a link to it. It's a little PDF where you can write this stuff down, and I saved mine. It's been really, really cool to save it and go back and now look at it and see just how far I've gotten. I haven't accomplished all 16 things precisely, but most of them are like falling into place exactly as I wrote them, which I said is so eerie. And it's just the power of writing something down and then working towards it one step at a time, one day at a time, and not getting overwhelmed by it, and trusting in God that He will lead you that way. Like I said, things can change sometimes. There will be obstacles. There will be mountains to climb sometimes, especially if your goal is big and bold like ours has been, and like yours should be. I mean, it should stretch you. That's part of growth, right? You don't want to have something that's easy. Oh, I'm going to lose 4 pounds in 3 years. No, you could do that in a couple months. That's easy. Like, do something that's going to actually challenge you. Do something that's going to really excite you and hopefully transform you into a better version of yourself. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what your mission is. And if you need help with anything or clarity, or if you want me to just tell you, hey, that's a horrible idea, I won't do that, but I will be more than happy to say, hey, you might want to be a little bit more precise, or even think a little bit bigger. I'd love to hear from you. It's Joe, Joe, at saltstrong.com. Joe at saltstrong.com. That's my private email. Love getting emails. Usually every Sunday and Monday seem to be the most from Unchurched. And I always read all of them. I know it takes me a while to get back to some of them, but definitely shoot me a message. Or if you want to just leave a comment for everyone, it's there at saltstrong.com/unchurched. So saltstrong.com/unchurched. And I post all the episodes there, and you can leave a comment at the bottom. Guys, I appreciate you. I love you. And I'll talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was pain.